Hello. So this one is going to be a short guide, not super edited, about Rush.js. Okay, so let's start with the main purpose of Rush.js. I think it will make sense to open the documentation and welcome to Rush information. So Rush is basically is the same thing as Yarn workspaces or PNPM workspaces or Lerna. The only thing that is different is that it's just completely different philosophy. The philosophy is closer to the Gradle probably, if you ever worked with the Java. So it's it uses PNPM under the hood. It's a default one, and I highly recommend to use this one. It kind of supports PNPM and PM and Yarn, but to be honest, the most reliable is PNPM for now. And what else? It's really explicit. So there is no implicit stuff like in Yarn. You have this, globe patterns. Same with others. It's more specific. You describe every single project you have. You describe a lot of rules, and after you are done, your monorepo is controlled automatically by scripts, pretty strictly and nicely, and I really like it. Another feature that it has is that it supports fast builds, subset and incremental builds. Also, it just very nice reporting of the outputs of the commands. You can bulk publish stuff, so if you have one thing depending on another thing and depending on another thing, and things are changing, it will automatically bulk publish all of them really quickly. It also has internal changelog tracking. I will explain how it all works. Um, what's all great, but that it will fail your CI if you fail to add changelog. And what I like about the changelog, it's not commit driven, so it's way simpler, and I love it for that. It also has enterprise policies that I never use myself in my projects, so I don't think it'll be really helpful for many. But again, there is a lot of stuff like it will enforce you a proper email addresses, the proper Git history, so you can set up the commit message format, and a lot of more stuff. Everything is adding all the time. It's pretty developing very, 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 actively, and you can clearly see what's the direction they are taking. And because there's not a rush, it's only one small tool from the Rush Stack repository that Microsoft is developing publicly. So I highly recommend you to dig into it. The documentation is pretty great for such a powerful tool. Of course, there's a lot of missing spots, and I hope that these short videos will clean everything up for you, or at last it will, show in the video how it all works in real time, which is more preferable for some people. So let's start with the initialization. How you're going to do that? So first, you need to install the Rush. So you'll have to do typical install global and then Microsoft Rush thingy. It's already installed for me. Then you will run Rush init, and it will generate, as you can see, quite a few files. I already ran that. Of course, I prepared some examples, so we're not wasting time on typing and stuff like that. I don't want to edit it out. So and this is how you need it. Of course, you need to do that preferably on an empty repository and start from scratch, but it's pretty straightforward to migrate from other monorepo tools. And let's go with the first thing that is the most important is how to add modules. So in order to add module, take a look. We have two modules named my controls and dependent lib that depending on the my controls is to add it to the Rush JSON. By default, Rush uses PNPM. So once you will run Rush update or Rush install or any other command, it will automatically install the PNPM version and will put it into the temp directory here. So let's run Rush update because for now we don't have any yarn log generated. We already have it, so we can run Rush install, but let's run Rush update for now. It's one of the default commands that are there in the Rush. I will go into the default commands later. So we run Rush update, it will install a lot of dependencies. In that case, it's only one because my controls only have this dash useless dependency that I just had for an example. So if you take a look here, you have a Lodash here, and it's installed. And of course, I ran into that a bit too early because we should have add the files to projects modules to our Rush JSON config file. So as you can see, I have two packages that I already added. One is dependent leap, that is dependent on this my controls leap, and the my controls that at the bottom. And what important thing that I think is not noticed or not mentioned in the documentation is that your order should be like it used to. So your dependent leaps should be below the uh, this one is depends on the my control, so your my control thing should be on the top. I think this is how it is. At last it used to be required before it was controlled by pnpm itself. What I mean by that, that here there's a one thing named pnpm options that gives you ability to fine tune pnpm. So there's a one thing that I already enabled. It's experimental for now. As you can see, this is experimental. But where they are going, the Rush development, plan, they are going to the direction where Rush is just managing the Monorepo stuff. It orchestrates the calling of the commands. It makes sure that dependencies are strict in some way. I will explain about more features later. So it makes sure that strict stuff is there and it controls that through the whole monorepo. And they want to get rid of package manager related stuff. So they will be separated from the package manager related stuff. They hope that in the future, the npm and yarn and pnpm will be just drop-in replacement in some sort of a way. So they will not do anything related to, I don't know, linking or installing stuff and collecting dependencies and then resolving them and do a lot of heavy lifting related to that. So this is the first step they have. Without this use workspaces, it'll work differently. So how I describe in case of use workspaces true, here I have workspace star. So my controls is visible here and you can see that here it is actually available in node modules. If this section will not be there, use workspaces will be false. Here I will have to put the version of the my control. So it's 1, so I should put here a 0 or something like that. So, and then they will see each other. But since we're using the workspace and it's pretty recommended because PNPM will just figure everything out and will link everything out. And it's way more preferable than Rush, hacks on top of it. We will have to use it like that. So as I said, once you edit the project or remove the project or you add some dependencies in your package JSONs here and here, you should run rush update and it will install all the dependencies. So let's go into so this is how you add the module, right? Pretty simple. These things should match. If they will not, Rush will complain, which is great. What else? Let's talk about the default commands that are available. I will not tell about all of them, but I will probably mention the one that's really important. So init, of course, initialize new repository to be managed by Rush. Another thing is init auto installer. I already have one initiated, so probably I will just delete this one, just so we can use this command. What's the auto installer is, I will explain in the next section. That is adding custom commands. So let's start with the other. So change. This one is pretty straightforward. You For this to work, you need to have your project to be Git managed. What it does, it checks whether changes in your branch compared to the master or main or whatever branch is the main for you. You can set it up in the Rush.js. Uh, it will check whether changes to which packages changes were done, and then it will ask you to say what kind of type of change is that. So it's whether it's patch or minor or major. Next thing, it will ask you for the description, and after you answered all of the question or you skipped a few of them, it will generate in the common folder. Here there will be a changes folder with all with a package JSON named after your branch and some timestamp with that information, and it should be committed. Why it should be committed? Because of the change management that is in Rush available. If you want to publish, of course, some of your packages in your Monorepo, there is a command rush change with the flag v, which is verify, which you want to run on your CI, and CI on CI it will check the same thing. And if you never ran it without the V and you never push these changes that are generated to your branch, then change with verify will fail. So your build, so you will have to go and do it. So it actually enforces developers to actually keep their changes nice and beautiful. And then after it's done, once you will run someday from the master branch the publish command, it will collect all of the changes here. We'll figure out what kind of bumps it have to do, whether it's a major bump, minor, or patch, and will generate change log for you and everything related to that automatically. I love it because it's not related to commit information, commit messages like other tools do. So I think it's more reliable, it's more humane in some way, so it's easy to understand and easy to manage, to be honest, because, well, Git is a pretty complicated thing, and this is basically removes this piece from the equation. I mean, it's still there, it uses Git under the hood, but I mean, it's way easier than trying to, squash the Gits and stuff like that. So check this one again. I think it's run automatically when you run install or upload, or I think every command, to be honest. It just makes sure that if you have in Rush.js, let me show you that, there is a thing that it's not enabled by default, so you need to enable it yourself. Ensure consistent version. This setting will actually make all of your package JSONs to be in sync in a way that if you have here, let's say in this one, Lodash will be 4.1720, but another it'll be 18 something, it will complain and will ask you to sync them up. Whether it will be every other will go up or down, it's you to decide. If it's safe, you can just bump them all up. But it's really convenient because it also supports, of course, ranges. So it will make sure that if you have ranges, everywhere these ranges will be the same. And it's pretty convenient. So another thing is, you may ask, okay, that's all great, but what if I want to update certain parts of my huge mono repository into using, let's say, TypeScript, right? It will complain what I'm going to do. Basically, where you go to the common versions, and here you can add, that's an example, of course, an alternative version that will be okay. And then, of course, the algorithm will stop to complain about that. So let's go back to this rush thing and to our commands, right? So this check command was actually checking on ensuring the consistent versions, and I think it will also check on strict peer dependencies, but I'm not sure. I think it's more of a PNPM thing. So deploy, never use that. It's a new command. It's experimental. I still need to dig into it. What's the main purpose of that? But I think, yeah, just as far as I can tell from this description, it will just probably copy certain projects and files of them into some target folder, so you can easily deploy without going, way deep into your tree or whatever. Init already walked through that. Auto installer. In order to explain that, I will have to explain to you about the commands. Init deploy creates a deployment scenario config file for use with Rush deploy, As I said, probably it's a new experimental thing, and in order to add it to your project, they recommend to use this, new command so you can bootstrap it quickly. Uh, as I said, I'm not a professional here. Install, pretty much the same thing as you may expect. I think in Yarn it works the same way. So if you just want to install and nothing is changed, and you have the latest npm lock or Yarn lock, you better just run Yarn install. But if you want to bump something and stuff like that, you should run update. It will update the shrink wrap file and stuff like that. Okay, a list, just list package information for all the projects in the repo. Publish, as I said, reads and processes package publishing change request generated by Rush change. Purge, basically it will remove all the node modules, all the Rush folders, and will make your repository pristine in some way. I mean, in sense of Rush. Scan, this one is just display a report of the important packages. Never used it myself, to be honest. Probably someday it'll be useful for me. Unlink, basically this link thing will create the node modules to all the projects. They will symlink one with each other, and I think it's not related to the dependencies that you install, but link is more related to your local dependencies. And unlink basically, reverse it all back. As you can see, delete node module symlinks for all projects in the repo. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. It'll create version, basically to manage versions in the repo. Again, never use that because the change command usually manage it all. These two commands are custom, as you can see, because the stupid description is here. But we will go into that right after this one. So build again, it's a default command that is expected to be in every single package JSON. So what I mean expected to be, it means that you should have the build command here, because this command will run them all in the proper sequence, in a sequence of dependencies. So first, the things that on the top, and then go down to the last one that is the most dependent on the most packages. Stupid explanation, but can't use any other words. Rebuild is the same thing. It's clean and rebuild the entire set of projects. So even though you already built, it will rebuild everything, even though, there is incremental builds, and if nothing in your project has changed, a build will be instant. If you'll run rebuild, it'll rebuild it anyway. Just to be sure, tab complete, I don't know what it is. I assume that it's all for tab completion, something like that. That will be installed in your machine, probably. Never run it, new thing. So you should run it yourself and figure it out. So let's start with the custom commands first, and then we will go into auto installers immediately while I'm explaining about that. So yeah, one of the things you need to run once you add your commands, though, is just run build. And if everything is fine, it will just run. Let me just remove these prepared before. Okay, it's not prepared before. It probably complains or something. Custom command reader specifies and also going to setting, but path not exist. Okay, so it checks whether I have a proper auto installer. As you can see, it's pretty strict. It checks stuff, and it's not letting you do any, it immediately informs you if something is wrong with your setup of Monorepo. So I will ignore it for good here. We'll remove this comma, and I think it will be just fine. Let me run again. As you can see, it's happy. So it ran both of them. First dependent leap, then mind controls, and it's wrong because it will actually fail. That's why you need to have them into the right direction, into the right sequence. And I'm not sure if it's in the right sequence, to be honest here. So because this thing is dependent on my controls, so my controls should be built first. And let me check the command. First thing was my controls, and then dependent leap was the second one. Okay, so let me try to move them like that. Whether it will not fail, of course, because there's no build command, so nothing is generated. Yeah, so it will just skipped. Will be just skipped. Probably they improved that, so they're checking whether how they are dependent one on each other. So this order is not important anymore. I'll double check in other repositories myself later, but I think it's not important anymore, at least with use workspaces. I'm wondering. So, great. As you can see, they are skipped because nothing is changed in these files. So it's automatically, if that would be, I don't know, 15 seconds run of the tool, it's skipped automatically, really quick. So it's incremental, right? So let me go to the custom commands, right? One of the things that Lerna gives, and I think a few others, is an ability to run a bulk commands, right, in a proper sequence. So as you already saw, the build command is, they ran in a proper sequence, and so you can create your custom one, and it looks like that. You select the command kind of bulk, then you put the name, which should match with what you have here, lint, right? And then you tell whether it's incremental. So in case of lint, I think it's pretty makes sense. It makes sense to use incremental here because incremental, uh, if nothing is changed with your code in your package, it makes no sense to run it again because the result will be the same. Description is description. I think it's a deprecated field. So right now, I think summary is the new thingy that you have to use. Enable parallelism, it means that can you run the command in parallel, right? Safe for simultaneous processes is when you run, sometimes you run two things in parallel. Let's say you want to run lint, bulk command, and TSC link TSC command, TypeScript compiler, I mean, and you want to do that in parallel, you will be able to do that because they're not conflicting with each other and you'll be absolutely fine. Of course, if your TypeScript compiler is not generating any, uh, you know, um, files, compiles, or anything out, or just compile. If it's just type checked, it's all good. If it generates some files and other projects are related to that file, definitely parallelism and simultaneous processes could be dangerous. So ignore missing script. Again, this makes sure that every single package you have this script in their package JSON. So if we will make this false, we'll make this false, and the lint will be non-existent here. It will fail, and you will have to make at last empty script, just a stab, or implement the proper one. It will just remind you to do that, which is great. In the summary, this one will be shown in the help once you run it. You may want to have is to have a parameters, right? Because lint by itself has a lot of parameters like fix, cache, and everything else. So you may just enable Rush to pass some particular parameters to this particular script and command. And you can do that with these parameters. You can tell what kind of parameter kind it is, whether it's flag or something else. There's other kinds. I don't remember which kind of kinds there are. Oh yeah, so string, let's say, right? So you then tell what long name it is, what the short name of that, if it's there, of course, and the description and associated commands. And here you'll put the lint, so you'll be able to pass into the lint, so you'll be able to run it like rush lint fix, right? And it will run lint with a fixed flag for all of your npm scripts. And you may ask why it's important, yeah? But it's important because it generates help for every command. So for now we have this rush lint, and if we run help here, it'll show all possible scenarios for this particular command. So that's why it's important, right? So it will add it somewhere here, so it'll be kind of out documented, and it's nice. I think it's great design for such tool that you definitely want to enforce some sort of documentation into everything in the config too. So great design decision here. So same here. I mean, there's a lot of nitty gritty details about that, and you can read this generated file for more insights. But overall, this is how it is. what about globals, right? This one is bulk. It means that it will run for every single package inside of this package with the package JSON. It will basically follow this scripts. There's also command kind of global. Global command is basically a command that you can run in your root of your repository and you want to get some result. Good example is a prettier. Definitely it'll be a bit of too much, but for the big project, right? For the small one, it'll be absolutely fine. Another one, and maybe you may create some CLI tool that scaffolds projects, right? And you want it to be available through Rush command. So you will create the Rush scaffold command that will run your CLI with some particular parameters that again you explicitly exposed. And then yeah, you will bootstrap, let's say, a new package, and your term template will be there and it will be nicely used. It will be in help. It will have, a lot of cool things, and it will be auto documented. So it teaches people to write correct helps basically also. So it enforces them to do that. Okay, so let me explain what auto installer is. So auto installer, it's very nice for, there is hooks, pre-installed hooks, post-build, pre-build, and stuff like that in a Rush. You can set them up here, as you can see. Basically a list of commands to run. And sometimes your JavaScript do something blah 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 JS wants some dependencies, right? And in order to install them, you definitely don't want to use Yarn or some other tool. So they come up with a thing that is auto installers. So auto installer is basically you create the folder here, auto installer. As I said, few few versions before it was manual work. Now you can just generate it, and what it does, it enables you when you run, let's say, Rush Prettier or something similar, it will see whether this auto installer has node modules installed, and if there's no node modules, it means it was never run in this repository, or after you checked out the repository, Rush repository, you run Rush update. That is completely separate from this command, and you never run this command, and it will never bother to install the dependencies of your particular script that you need, global script that you need, that is not related, that is more related with managing your monorepo rather than with managing your, modules itself. You're not going to publish it or something like that, right? So in order to automate this installation on demand, like not eagerly but lazily, they come up with this auto installer thing. And when you do these global commands, you have an option to set auto installer name, and it will go find the auto installer here and will install this particular dependencies of this auto installer automatically for you. So let me actually run. Let me go back here and see this beautiful init auto installer command. Never ran it. We'll see how it works, right? So Rush init auto installer, and let's name it in this sense my CLI, because I already used it above and I'm lazy. So it's just generated everything. Let's see. Auto installers. Here we go. My CLI, empty thing. And let's just add the prettier here inside. Okay. And in order to generate, to install the dependencies for this auto installer, I mean, not install, but generate log file, that is important. You run update auto installer and then the name of your auto installer. So my CLI, it will run, and now we will see node modules and pnpm log for this particular CLI. And what's great about that is, even though it's deep nested in here in auto installers, once you make it into the command line JSON, and you definitely uncommand that thing, it exposes Prettier in your root, in the root of your repository. So it's isolated. There is no, for example, your libraries will not see this node module, because how classically it works: you make a package JSON in your root, you install your Prettier, slint, whatever global commands you want to run, and they are here in node modules. But you end up with a broken, the node modules here the algorithm will be following. Let's say you use something from ESLint, right? Here, it'll see like, is there ESLint? No, there's no. It will go higher and higher and higher until it will hit this one at the top or the root one that you have the globally installed packages, right? So it avoids this thing while still giving you option to run the command. So we have a shell command here, which is just right. Of course, you can expose it with the parameters. So let me try to do it for the libraries or just for the dot. I think it's fine. And run it. Hopefully this demo will not fail as many others I did. So as you can see, oh, it just goes through a lot of files. We just definitely don't want that. We need to add the ignores for the temp folder, or probably the whole thing, because this is we don't want to run Preter against that. Hopefully, WebStorm will not kill me with indexing now. So this is how it all works. It enables you to see the preter in your shell command here, but if you run it in your root, let's say, just try to run the preter, unless of course I have it installed globally. Prettier? Yes, it's installed globally, but I don't know. I need to probably add ESLint or something. It will not be available here. I will run ESLint and it will say like it's not available here, it's not there, but I have Preter globally installed. That's why it's working perfectly. Let's check it out with the ESLint. Of course, it will blow away in our face, but let me add ESLint and I will prove you that it actually sees it in kind of isolation. So let's rush update out installer. My name's Li. As you can see, it goes, installs a lot of packages. And if we run ESLint now, it's not found. But let me do and go to the config command line. And here it will not be, let's name it ESLint. Or again, we can use one auto installer if we are lazy to create few of them, because it makes no sense for, let's say they're not conflicting much. ESLint and I don't know, let's do something more specific so it's not blow away. So libraries, okay, libraries, yeah. So look, we have this thing, all great. I'll install our name mycli, name will be ESLint or just lint, let it be. It will conflict with this one, so I will just name it glink, so it's a global lint. And let's see whether it's added, help, dash help. And it's there. Amazing. Rush.js. As you can see, it fails with the ESLint. Here, it's not available. Absolutely blind, but this particular command kind of exposes it for you in your root of your monorepo, which is super nice and helpful. What else? So this is auto installer's super powerful thing. Highly recommend you to use this thing. I am using it usually for my scripts that I am running in this beautiful post install commands. One of it is to install the git hooks, and another one is to sort packages on, in sense that it will sort all the dependencies in them nicely, because I mean, to avoid stupid diffs or just to keep stuff consistent, because it simplifies a lot of bulk editing of your packages on using search and replace. Okay, so I already talked to you about the hooks. I already talked to you about adding custom commands, about building stuff, about default commands, incremental builds, change management. The one thing I said, it also controls, should publish or not. So a few of them could be publishing, a few of them not. Cyclic dependency projects, and many of things. There's a lot of other strictness like Git policies. You can say what kind of default branch you have, what default remote, your version bump commit message, how they should look, sample email, so people can see the example of how your sample email should look like, email regex, and many of other stuff that is really advanced. And I am not using all of them because my requirements of my projects are not that complicated. I hope that will someday create the guides for that, but for now, everything I know about it, it's everything, all the features inside I have, and I hope it's pretty helpful and insightful for you, and you enjoyed this one. Thank you.